So we played our 18th session of the Lost Mines of Phandelver campaign, and the party started off after they just defeated King Grawl and Snarl, and they debated about taking a short rest or even a long rest, but they heard some noise coming from the room that Gundren was in, so they sent someone to go open the door, find out he kicked it open, and found the dwarf Gundren Rockseeker, who basically since the beginning of the campaign they have been tasked with finding. And there was an old lady in there who is technically the doppelganger, and she had her hands free and a shard of glass in her hands, and the party did ask her what the glass was for, but I guess they weren't able to discern that she was going to use it to kill Gundren, and that she had told them that she was used it to escape from her bondage, as she was also a prisoner of King Grawl. Um, and the party didn't even ask anything about rope or anything or how she was tied up. But so they weren't suspicious of her, and they had seen her before in the town. Um, and they did try to revive Gundren, and they did with the heal spell just to give him a little tiny heal. I think it was a healing word. Give him some HP so he'd wake up because he was knocked out. And they did that. And while they were talking to Gundren, the old lady was moving around the room, looking at stuff and knocking stuff around. And I just basically rolled, and if it was less than a 10, she knocked something over, or she was obviously, um, doing something besides just standing there. The party just kind of asked her what she was doing, and still, again, they couldn't discern what she was doing. And she was looking for the map because the map has not been found. And Gundren asked the party to find the map, and they eventually did under the bed, I think, in the book, and they found all of the loot from the book. So they got most of the loot from the King's Quarter that you find. Which was a stitched leather sack with some money, 3 potions of healing, and the map. Um, and the party looked at the map and they learned the location of the Wave Echo Cave, which essentially we just move on to our big map. And so it was just somewhere around there. So the party knows where it's at. But then the party wanted to go and explore the rest of the castle. And really they only had the Dark Hall and the throne room here, the storage room, and then a room over here with the hobgoblins and the goblins left to explore. Um, but as they got into this main room here that holds the Grick wasn't very stealthy, and the party was super stealthy, so they noticed it first. And basically, the ranger, um, who is a Gloomstalker, I believe, was able to kill it basically with 2 hits. Um, and the Grick was aware that he's probably in the losing battle, so he kind of tried to retreat behind the statues on the ceiling. But the ranger was able to knock him out fairly quickly. And when they did that, instead of fighting the robe goblin and his Lupo, the robe goblin and his companions, Lupo basically came out and then just kind of um, he was upset that his Grick had died, and so he kind of put on a waterworks show and crying and saying, "Why Maglu Biet?" Um, which he claims to hear according to the book, and uh, he's not aware that the party had killed the Grick. Um, and one of the party members, Tidrin, was able to successfully convince him that it was the hobgoblins who killed the Grick. Um, and in that moment, Jothrin slowly removed his arrows from the Grick's body, as Lupo was not aware, and that this was all with some rolls. It was his passive perception against Jothrin's sleight of hand, and Jothrin rolled pretty high on that, so he was able to remove his arrows without the Lupo seeing. Um, I did give the party the XP for the Grick and the Goblins, just because, I mean, at the end, Lupo and his band of goblins carried off the Grick, and they were shouting for Maglu Biet, and kind of just walked off to the north, and they said the hobgoblins would pay, but um, they're aware that the three of them won't be able to take on the hobgoblins, so that may be a story for another time, and kind of leave that thread out there. Maybe they come back with the Lupo comes back with an army. If the party ever comes back to it, just throw it in somewhere. Party least expect it. Maybe there's a hobgoblin goblin war that happens after the party kind of fast forward in time or something, and it's spilling over into the town of Phandalin. So those are kind of my thoughts for the future for Lupo. And it also kind of helps that once Lupo left, the party continued on, and the Goliath fighter actually triggered the debris collapse here, which alerted the hobgoblins, which were up in this tower up here, um, to their presence. So the hobgoblins came out, but Scrump, the Goliath fighter, had actually cut off the head of King Groll. And they kind of used it as intimidation against the hobgoblins, which the hobgoblins were, they were fine with that. The hobgoblins planned to dispose of the bugbears and take over someday, but the bugbears were too strong of a threat, so the hobgoblins gave the party a pass to leave the castle um, without a fight. And the party, I mean, they could have fought the hobgoblins and taken them out, but they did here. At that time, I did include Targor Blood Sword. I didn't put the two wolves. The party couldn't really see outside, so it's fine. But Targor came back, and he had his. Basically, I just gave him a bunch of goblins and hobgoblins as reinforcements, as the returning war band. And it says it's 3 hobgoblins and then 2 wolves, but yeah, if they really wanted to fight, they could have, but the party decided to book it out of there. Um, and they did leave Gundren and the old lady alone as they were exploring the rest. So when they came back, they found Gundren on the floor with his throat slit, and a shard of glass nearby, and his map missing. And the old lady was gone. And they were kind of shocked, but um, they thought she was being shifty, and they just didn't do anything about it. So they assumed that she went to the Wave Echo Cave, so they kind of booked it out of there. For sake of time, um, we didn't really do any random encounters on the way back. The ranger's pretty skilled to find the trails, so that's pretty much. I don't think he rolled below a 15 on his checks to not get lost. So we basically just kind of fast forward at that point back to Phandalin so that they could return Gundren's body. Sildar at first was happy to see them, but then seeing the corpse of Gundren, the mood immediately turned sour. He asked them what was going on and what happened, and the party explained that there was an old lady. And they kind of asked around town if anyone knew who the old lady was, and nobody really seems to recognize her. So Sildar tasked them with going to the Wave Echo Cave and avenging Gundren, and obviously clearing it out so he can continue his business with the Wave Echo Cave. The party did rest for the night. I believe they were pretty much wiped out, spells, actions, and HP wise. So they took the rest take the time, but they head out first thing in the morning to not lose any time, and they did make it to Wave Echo Cave. They were able to find it. The ranger remembered where it was on the map. And they had walked past that area before on the way back from Wyvern Tor, but obviously they didn't really, they were doing some roll checks to not get lost, and they almost found it. I think they rolled like a 19 or so. I said if on a 20, they probably would have found it. But it was a familiar area, but they didn't know the exact entrance. And as they did go through, they did find the dwarf, and it kind of tipped off that they had, uh, the dwarf is the brother of Gundren, and he was deceased as well. There were supplies and stuff, but they weren't concerned about that. And I kind of described him as having dirty clothes, but his shoes were a little bit cleaner than the rest. So they immediately found out that he was wearing a boots of striding and springing, and there was some toss up on who should get those. So they decided to have a roll off, and Scrump, the Goliath fighter, actually won that. Doing it WoW style. Um, it's probably more greed than need, but uh, I think one of the people who's wearing some heavy armor, and so his speed is reduced to 20. I'm not sure if those boots actually raise it to 30, but I would have let it just because it's yeah, I guess he's not proficient in his heavy armor, but he's wearing it anyway, so I would have the wording was kind of confusing on it, I guess, but I wasn't too picky about not letting it raise his speed to 30 if it was indeed, if you're encumbered or restricted by your armor, it doesn't raise it. So, but then they went down the pit. I think one person tried to jump down, um, and it was definitely too high to just jump down. Because how? Yeah, it's a 20-foot pit, so you take 2d6 damage. I think, yeah, he tried to jump down. He didn't take that much. It was like 3 damage or something. Um, but yeah, they continued on to the right into Area 3, where they were attacked by Sturges, and I did that as like a roll check, just against their constitution, just to see if they could fight them off. Um, and then basically, once again, if it was below 10, they failed. If it was above 10, they passed, just to kind of speed this up. And then if they passed, it was basically like they were able to defeat the Sturge and, squat it, smash it on your arm. Or they only have 2 HP, so they're pretty easy to kill. And then I think we did one round, and 3 out of the 6 people failed. And then the next round, one person failed. And then the next round, Kreef, the paladin, did a spell. I think it was a cantrip, Words of Radiance, that does flame damage, and he just finally ended up just the Sturge failed its Constitution check, and all that. Just basically at that point said all the Sturges were defeated. But yeah, the sorcerer Floridus did happen to lose 10 HP, which is almost half his HP, so whittling away at them. And then the party explored this room, which had 9 skeletons, which could have been annoying, but Kreef had his divine channel divinity, turn undead, so he used that, and I think that lasts for a minute, and they basically all failed. So they were afraid of him, and I believe they can only take the dash action. So they were basically running to the back of the room, and then the party just kind of took 2 attacks and basically whittled them down. I think there was one left at the end, and basically said, you all, surround this one skeleton and look of fear on his eyes, and you just gang up on him and defeat him. So that room was a relatively short encounter due to the turn undead. Didn't really need to do combat for it, since I think they were uh, pretty much scared for the whole turn, and it was coming towards the end of our session, so we kind of just moved it along a little bit. But yeah, that's where we left off. The next phase is going to be exploring the rest of the tunnel. So, um, there is this room. I kind of did this already, but 5. Nothing really is going to change much about this map due to the last A session. They haven't alerted anyone. There's kind of a lot of ambient sounds going on. They're not being super loud with explosions. For the most part, I may just have the old lady pop up. The doppelganger may pop up on the top end of the map next to the black spider. So I imagine the next session we can probably get through this cave, and I'll probably call it, if we finish real early, right before the black spider, because we've been playing online, and I think we're going to do the black spider in a in-person session. But yeah, so far nothing else should have changed. Going through each room has its own encounter that kind of plays off of sometimes some of the other rooms. They're going to get to the ghouls, so they seem to be working their way around. They'll probably go to 5 and 8, because that's what's on the map. And I try not to make it too obvious, and then you got 2, so I think I kind of cut it. So you have 2, 6, 7, 8. So those are probably going to be the most obvious ones to go to next. Or they may just keep going right and then go up. So yeah, that'll be it for this video. Let me know if you played Lost Mine of Phandelver before and how you prep for these sessions. Otherwise, thanks for watching.